وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ. They didn't kill him and they didn't crucify him. So if they didn't kill and they didn't crucify, there's no resurrection. Whatever happened, there is no resurrection. And if there's no resurrection, there's no Christianity. It's about time. My dear brothers and sisters, let me, as time is running out fast, let me end with another example from the Bible. You see, it was Sunday morning, the first day of the week. Sunday morning, the first day of the week. Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb of Jesus. I'm reading the Gospel of St. John, chapter 20. Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb of Jesus. I'm asking, why did she go there? Why did she go there? The Gospel says she went to anoint him. I say the Hebrew word for anoint is masaha. The Arabic also masaha, the root word, which means to rub, to massage, to anoint. Now tell me whether Jews massage dead bodies after 3 days. Do they? The answer is no. We Muslims, we are the closest to the Jew in our ceremonial law. Do Muslims massage dead bodies after 3 days? The answer is no. I said, you Christians, do you massage dead bodies after 3 days? The answer is no. Then I said, why would this woman want to go and massage a dead, rotting body after 3 days? Because within 3 hours, rigor mortis sets in. Rigor mortis sets in.
Oh,
see,
brothers in Islam, I don't like anybody to respond. No response at all. Would you please keep quiet? Please, please.
I know it hurts. No, I know it hurts. You see, because the foundation, the ground is being taken away from under your feet. And if you feel in desperation, I can appreciate that. By God, I appreciate your feelings. The thing... Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb. And she finds the tomb empty. I'm asking, why did she go there? So we are told she went to anoint him. When she finds the tomb empty, she starts to cry. It's a disappointment. She expected to find Jesus there. So she starts to cry. She sees the empty tomb and the winding sheets inside and the stone removed. So Jesus was watching her from wherever he was, not from heaven, but from this earth. You see, this tomb was a privately owned property belonging to Joseph of Arimathea, a very rich, influential disciple of Jesus, who had carved out of a rock a big roomy chamber, which Jim Bishop, one of your authorities, describes as 5 feet wide by 7 feet high by 15 feet deep, with a ledge or ledges inside. Around this tomb was the man's vegetable garden. Now don't tell me that this Jew was so generous, he was planting vegetables 5 miles out of Jerusalem for other people's sheep and gay goats to graze upon. Surely he must have got his gardener's quarters, and perhaps his country home, where he went for the weekend with his family. Jesus is there. He sees this woman, he knows who she is, and he knows why she is there. So he walks up to her and he finds her crying. So he says, woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? Why are you crying for? Who are you looking for? I'm asking, why does he ask such a silly question? Doesn't he know who she's looking for? Doesn't he know that she's disappointed not finding him? Of course he knows. Then why is he asking such a silly question? I say, it is not a silly question. He's actually pulling her leg, as the Englishman says, metaphorically, playing the fools. He's still got the sense of humor. He has been through an ordeal, according to the scriptures, but he's still got the sense of humor. So he says, woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? She, supposing him to be the gardener. I said, why does she suppose he's a gardener? Do resurrected bodies look like gardeners? Do they? Then why does she suppose he's a gardener? I said, because he's disguised as a gardener. Why is he disguised as a gardener? I said, because he's afraid of the Jews. Why is he afraid of the Jews? Because I say he didn't die and he didn't conquer death. Because if he had died and if he had conquered death, there's no need to be afraid anymore. Why not? Because the resurrected bodies can't die twice. Who says so? I said, the Bible. What does it say? It says it is ordained unto all men once to die, and after that the judgment. You can't die twice. So she, supposing him to be the gardener, says, Sir, if you have taken him hence, tell me, where have you laid him? To rest, to relax, to recuperate, so that I might take him away. One woman carrying away a corpse. Can you imagine? A frail Jewess, like a super American woman, you know, the superwoman's type of woman, you know, carrying him like a bundle of straw and taking him where? Bury him as who dug the grave. If there was a grave, carrying is one thing, but burying means you just have to dump him in a hole. Does it make sense? No. So she's supposing him to the gardener, says, Sir, if you have taken him hence, tell me, where have you laid him? To rest, to relax, to recuperate, so that I might take him away. The joke has gone too far. So Jesus says, Mary. The way he said, Mary, she recognized that this is Jesus from this intonation. And she wanted to grab him, as the Jews would do, to pay respects. So he says, touch me not. I say, why not? Is he a bundle of electricity, a dynamo, that if she touches him, she'll get electrocuted? No. Then why not? I say, because it hurts. What other reason? It hurts. You go and grab a man who has been through an ordeal, as Brother Floyd Clark described, you know, the nails and flogging and all that, and you go and embrace him, you're going to kill him. So she says, Mary says, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended unto my Father. I am not yet ascended unto my Father. In the language of the Jew, in the idiom of the Jew, he's saying, I am not dead yet. Now, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, my brother Floyd Clark has been unjust to himself. See, I feel he was unjust to himself, because this format was made by me. I said, whoever speaks first gets 10 minutes in the end. The second speaker has 1 hour continuously. The choice is yours. You take the choice. Had he given me the choice of speaking first, he would have an opportunity of refuting each and every one of these. But now, I pity him. In 10 minutes now, what he's going to do? What he's going to disentangle? What has been entangled now? What has been proved? I pity my brother, you know, good friend, I love him, but I says, now if you had asked for my advice, I would have told you, let me speak first. So you have an hour to refute me, and then I can rebut him if it was possible. But there is a verdict is required from each and every one that is here tonight. It is not a question of who is right and who is wrong. You can see where truth lies. What the Muslim says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ, that they didn't kill him and they didn't crucify him. And crucify means to kill by hanging or impaling on the cross. And you say, whatever things happen, according to your records, he was not killed and he was not crucified. And the verdict is that if the Jews were in the dock for the murder of Jesus Christ, that they are not guilty. For attempted murder, yes, but not for murder. وَآخِرُ الدَّعْوَانَ أَنِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ.
Before I introduce Professor Floyd again for the 10 minutes, I'd like to make an appeal for both Muslim and Christian audience and say this. It may be useful and important to think, it may be useful to interact or have information or intellectual thinking, but it is just as important to manifest the noble and lofty teaching of both Christ and Muhammad, peace be upon them, in our own behaviors. So I would ask the Muslim audience never to interrupt Professor Floyd or inject anything from the floor as he presented his full piece in the beginning. And I would ask my Christian brethren to observe the same also during the question and answer period. Thank you. Professor Floyd.
I hope that you will accede to the request of our chairman. I really am embarrassed because there was no interruption whatever of my speaking, and I know most of the audience are not fully in accord with what I said. And I hope that you will give to Mr. Deedat the courtesy that you gave to me. As Brother Deedat was sharing with us his study of the Scriptures, I'm delighted that he's studying 1 Corinthians 15, just praying that the light one day will break. There are 3 or 4 points. Now, I'm not here to debate. Mr. Deedat invited me to this program, and I was concurring with him. We're not here to do battle with one another, but this was his request. He said, we want to talk about the Bible. You do the best you can do, I'll do the best we can do, and then we'll leave it to God as to what happens. I believe that a wise choice. I appreciate the courtesy extended. I would invite my friend to further study. First of all, in the matter of reference to Mary touching Jesus, Brother Ahmed, you need to check back with your Greek. The word hapto, the word to touch used in that text, has one meaning in the active voice and another meaning in the middle. In the active, it means to touch, as Brother Ahmed was talking about, but in the middle, it means to cling. It is used in 1 Corinthians 7 of the embrace of people in a marriage relationship. Mary had grabbed him around the knees and was clinging to him to keep him. And Jesus said, you do not cling to me. I have not yet ascended unto my Father. I am fully in accord with all that Brother Ahmed said about Jesus coming back alive from the dead. Everything he says is true. Jesus was alive in the body and manifest being alive in the body in all of his appearances following the crucifixion. But what Brother Ahmed still does not understand is that when Jesus said flesh and bones, he did not say flesh and blood. He gave his blood when he died upon the cross, and he did not miraculously receive it back. He came into the upper room in a bloodless body, evidenced by the fact that the holes in his hands and feet and side were not oozing blood out on the carpets. In the distinction between the alive and the resurrection, Brother Ahmed needs to study further this point. Jesus said that he would lay down his life, he would take it again, and he would do it, and he would come back and be with them, which he did. But 40 days afterwards, he ascended, leaving the physical body behind and ascending in the resurrected body. In Jesus' case, occurring 40 days after the crucifixion. And in his words to Mary, as quoted by Ahmed, I have not yet ascended. In the discussions which we have had about the sign of Jonah, Ahmed needs to look further into the text also. When Jesus said, as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the earth, the Greek word is there hosper, as indeed. It does not express a comparison of identical nature. It is comparing some loose sense of comparison. Had the author intended an exact relationship, he would have needed to use hosautos or some such conjunctive adverb. As to the 3 days and 3 nights, Christendom did not celebrate Good Friday for more than 300 years after the coming of Christ, when many traditions crept in that were foreign to the New Testament. The New Testament teaches that there were 2 Sabbaths, a high Sabbath and a Sabbath a week co-joining, and that Jesus was crucified then on Thursday, not Friday, and his body lay in the tomb over the 2 days of the Sabbath. Again, I want to thank you for your wonderful courtesy. God bless you, everyone.
Thank you.
While I begin with some remarks as to how we should conduct the question-answer session, I would like to ask those who wish to have questions to line up in the front here so that they can use the microphone. Now, we have about 10 minutes or so for questions. I understand that this is a very limited time, so I would have to be, with your permission, very strict on these rules. First of all, a question, is not a speech or mini-speech. You have only a few seconds to put your question directly and to the point. Number 2, if any of the audience have more than one question, ask only one so as to give a chance to other brethren, and get back to in the queue. You may have a chance if there is time allowed. I would like again to appeal to all audience never to interject anything from the floor or comment. Let people ask their questions briefly and the speakers will answer them. Again, I'd like to insist on that, a few seconds. No preliminary comments. No preliminary comments. Directly to the question. The first brother, please.
I'd like to ask both speakers why they didn't mention the fact that there are 49 references to crucifixion in the Bible, and to the word raised or resurrection in Arabic qama. In all languages there are more than 7 references in front of me to the actual word being raised, and why they didn't refer both of them to the fact that external evidences in history has spoken about the actual crucifixion of Christ by the Roman authorities.
Thank you. Would any of the speakers wish to answer first?
With regards to the word risen or resurrected, in the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, not once is the word resurrection used in connection with Jesus, that he is resurrected. Not once. In the 4 Gospels, there is not a single reference.
Thank you, Mr. Deedat. No interjection. Please get back in the line, and you may have a chance if there is. We have to give just a minute, please. We have to look at behind you and see how many people are waiting. Please give a chance to others. Would Professor Floyd wish to comment on that? Briefly also, please. Please. No, Ya Akhi, you're not the chairman of the meeting. I will tell him. So please, keep quiet. You wait until Professor Floyd answers. No, go ahead.
I'm not sure that I heard the question with the disturbance involved, but if I understand the question, it is about the use of the word resurrection. And of course, the Bible refers both to the fact that Jesus arose on Istemi and that he was alive. And this is the teaching of Scripture, that Jesus was resurrected and Jesus was alive.
Thank you, Professor Floyd. The next questioner.
This question is to either Professor Floyd or Mr. Deedat.
Can you get a bit close to the mic so that everybody can hear you?
The question is for both speakers, really. Okay. It may sound a bit irrelevant, but I'm very anxious to know if Jesus has said anything about the coming of Muhammad, please, in the Bible.
Okay, the question is whether Jesus said anything about the coming of Muhammad. In the chair, I would like to rule that this is not relevant to the specific topic for tonight. If there is a chance after the questions are answered, we might be able to get to that. Thank you. The next.
I understand from Professor Clark's lecture that Jesus Christ gave his life for the sins of humanity, and also that the death is the sort of penalty of sins. If that is true, that simply means that the concept of reward and the concept of punishment is lost. Then you can go on committing the sins, and there's nothing to stop it from you.
Okay, your question is directed to any of
Professor Clark, please.
To Mr. Deedat. To Professor Clark. Okay. I didn't hear it. Would you repeat it, but provide, please, come to the point, straightforward.
The
Brief.
points are two. You see, from Professor Clark's lecture, I understand that Jesus Christ gave his life for the sins of humanity. And the second point is that the death is sort of penalty of sins. Therefore, it implies that you can keep on committing sins and nothing to stop it from you, because the concept of reward and punishment is completely lost if we believe in this thing.
Okay. I think my understanding is that it says
It will encourage us to heal sin.
Yeah.
Claiming that Jesus redeemed us. So we'll commit sins as much as we can.
Again, we're having difficulty. I'm old enough to, in this sort of thing, not to be able to pick up all that is being said, but if I understand the question is, if Jesus died for the sin of the world, does that encourage everybody to sin? Is that the question? Well, we have the definitive answer, of course, in Romans. That's impossible, because if a Christian obeys the Lord Jesus Christ and is pardoned for his sins, the Christian dies to sin. We are buried, therefore, Paul says, with baptism through him into death, that like as Christ was raised from the dead, and so on. And the Christian cannot continue in sin if he accepts the blood of Christ, because he dies to sinning, and that's why he comes to him.
Thank you. The next, and again briefly and to the point.
This is directed to Professor Clark. I refer to Matthew 27, verse 46-47. The statement reads, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. And then further on it says, that is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Just one thing. It's the only verse that is left in the original Aramaic or Greek. Now, that is why it intrigues me. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. The word in Greek for
point,
God, yes, is Elohim. There is no such God, and there is no proof anywhere that in that time, in the time of Jesus, that Eli meant my God. Because why did the Jews...
Excuse me. No speeches, no many speeches, no preliminary remarks.
Okay.
Put the question directly.
Okay, the question is, then it goes on to say, then some of the bystanders hearing this said, what is this man saying? Is he meaning Elijah? That means the Jews did not understand what Eli meant.
Again, I have to warn you before cutting you off.
What is the question?
Put your question directly in one sentence.
Okay.
What is the question?
The question is, my proposition is Eli does not mean my God. Eli is a name, because I've asked synagogues and I've asked several professors of
Okay.
Hebrew, and they say Eli can be a name
Okay.
of a person.
Okay, Professor Clark. My understanding is he said Eli, and Eli doesn't necessarily mean my God.
We will have two more questions. Only two more questions.
Again, I think the question is difficult in this context to answer. Jesus is quoting from an Old Testament passage, and in that Old Testament passage, we then can understand what Jesus was talking about. And I would recommend that the party who has the question just turn to that passage in the Old Testament, and I think it perfectly answers your question.
Thank you. The next questioner. I hope there will be no need to cut off any questioner. Please.
I first would like to thank Mr. Deedat for his very excellent and intelligent exposition of the question.
And now the question.
I'd like to ask Professor Clark about what he thinks of the nature of Jesus and whether he was God or the Son of God or the messenger of God. Because in his talk, he said that when Jesus was about to bring Lazarus from the dead, he said, thank you, so that you may believe, so that they may believe that you have sent me. He's talking to God. So,
Okay.
and also on the cross in Professor Clark's exposition, he's saying, Father, in thy hands I commit my soul. Now, isn't that enough evidence for Professor Clark to convince him that the relationship between Jesus and God is the relationship between a God and the messenger?
Okay, thank you. The question was directed to Mr. Deedat or to Professor Clark. Just make it clear. Okay.
Jesus, when he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, he was speaking in the spirit of all that he had done through a long time ministry, in which he said he did nothing except what he saw his Father do, that the words he spoke were not his own, but the words he heard his Father speak, and he claimed only to be relating to God as his Father.
Okay. Thank you. We're really running out of time. We might allow 2 or 3 questions more. The first one.
In 1974-75 on television, Professor Anderson, who ironically taught Mohammedan law in the Council of Legal Education, London, and University of London, called Muslim...
Brother, would you please put your question directly?
It is.
Yeah.
And pagan, because they did not believe in Trinity. May I ask Dr. Floyd what is his view about Muslims, as they do not believe and recognize Trinity, as well as the crucifixion of Prophet Jesus? Do you consider Muslims as pagan or the people of the book? Given also the fact that at the time of the Prophet, many pious Christians freely accepted Islam.
Okay, thank you. Professor Clark.
When a Muslim doesn't believe in Trinity and the crucifixion, of the rejection of this notion.
Well, it really doesn't matter what I think. It just matters what the book says. And as we've been looking in the book, I think we can come to whatever private opinions we may have. But I think of my brother Ahmed as of one whom in the New Testament was mentioned as one who was not far from the kingdom.
Okay, the next question. No injection from the floor, please. The next speaker. Would you please come close so that you could be...
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.
My question is direct to Brother Ahmed Deedat. Well, yesterday, day before yesterday, on Friday, I attended his meeting in South Hall, and he was speaking about Prophet Muhammad's arrival is mentioned in the Bible. Therefore, why Christians, theologians don't talk about...
if your question, I'm sorry for injection here. If your question, brother, relate... Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Just a minute, please.
Muhammad's arrival is mentioned in the Bible.
In fairness to you...
Why Christians, theologians don't talk about him?
Just a minute, please. In fairness to you and to everybody else and to the brother who was turned down, the question is not relevant to the topic. Would you please move on? Would you please move on and let the next speaker ask the question? Relevant to the topic? Go ahead briefly. Just put it... Professor Clark.
True gospel of Jesus Christ, which is called the gospel of Barnabas, is not
Okay, would you...
accepted by the Christians.
Thank you for your question. I had ruled the question out of order. It's not relevant to the topic. Would you move on, please? Would you move on? Would you move on, Jazakallah? Next speaker. Would the next speaker please ask his question? We have to be fair and firm. Am I doing something wrong? I'd like to get indication of the way I'm conducting questions. Am I unfair? Go ahead. Briefly, brother, please.
I would like to say that I'm grateful for this opportunity, and my questions are actually two. Number one, if the Quran is indeed from God, does it contradict itself in as much as it says
Okay.
سلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا. Therefore Jesus was born, he died, and he rose again. The second question, if God...
Oh, I'm sorry. The rules of the game is to ask one question and get the back so that other people will have a chance.
All right.
Thank you. Now the question is directed to Mr. Deedat. Mr. Deedat.
Thank you.
The verse in question is وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ أُبْعَثُ حَيًّا, which translated means, so peace is on me the day that I was born, the day that I die, and the day that I shall be raised to life again. The day that I die, it is not that I died. It's not died, it's in the future.
We have time for a maximum of 2 or 3 questions at most, because there is a few minutes at the end for concluding remark. The next question, please.
If we admit,
Can you get close to the mic, please?
if we admit that Jesus died to expiate sin, what was the curse handed to Adam for committing sin? Is it not that women would bring forth with pain and men would have to work for the bread? And is that finished in this world? Does the crucifixion help it? The next question I would like
No next question. No next question. Thank you. Professor Floyd, Clark, have you got the question?
Sorry, but I have one
Sorry,
question.
we have to respect the rules. The question of the brother.
Only one question, please. I have one question.
No second question. Please get in the back if there is a chance. Thank you. Please keep the quiet. Keep the order. Keep the order, please. Wait a minute until the question is answered. Professor Clark.
Again, I'm not sure I understand the question. Did you get it?
What was the topic? I remember if you tell me.
Something about sinning. And a
Oh
man
yeah,
and a woman.
he said that if Jesus died for our sin, and the Bible said that because of that original sin, man was destined to labor for his work in the book of Genesis, and woman would suffer the pregnancy and childbirth. How is that consistent then? If Jesus died for our sin, and still women are going through this suffering, and men are working for it.
Well, I think the question that has been asked concerning the role of the woman who has been suffering since since the beginning when Adam and Eve fell, and the woman has had this role of punishment because she disobeyed God. I think that question is very far from our discussion tonight, but in answer to this, we do know that the New Testament teaches that all creation was brought under bondage when man sinned, and that bondage will not be redeemed until the end when Christ redeems the world.
I think we'll have entertain one more question because we are running out of time. We have only 4 minutes left. The last one.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Everybody has a question that is one sentence, but we have 50 sentences waiting. Go ahead.
I like to ask Professor Clark, in the book of Hebrew, chapter 5, verse 7, it says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplication with strong cries and tears unto him, is God, that was able to save him from death, D-E-A-T-H, and was heard in that was he feared. Wasn't a clear indication that he was saved from this? Thank you very much.
Before the answer of the question, I have to apologize by asking the brothers or sisters who are waiting in line to forget it. And we are sorry, we are already 10 minutes behind time. Did you get maybe? It's there are concluding remarks, so we can't take that. Would you please, could I ask those brothers who are standing here to please be seated? There is no more time. Professor Clark.
The Hebrew writer makes it quite clear that Jesus came as a man into the world to live as a man and to learn obedience And though he was God's prophet in the world and God's son, yet there were things that he had to do common to man, and that he had to learn what it means as a man to have to obey. And in the midst of that, God heard him because of his faithfulness in a human flesh as he was laboring with the temptations and tortures and hatred that he received in the world. And God, of course, heard him because he was faithful in everything which he did.
Thank you. We come now to some concluding remarks and announcements. Would you please allow me to continue? Thank you. Tonight, we have already heard two very prominent, very sincere speakers. I know it is July, but when you add the heat of July to the heat generated in this hall, it might get a little bit too much. However, I feel that I am echoing the feeling of the great majority of those who are present, that it is indeed quite useful and beneficial for both Muslims and Christians to get together and to try to understand each other. Muslims and Christians together with nearly 1 billion more or less followers each constitute about 40% of world population. It is indeed very strange that we hear about détente between such divergent philosophies as the US and the Soviet Russia. And we never hear as much about badly needed détente between two communities of believers who share something much more significant than those shared by the US and USSR. The belief in the Creator, the belief in the prophets and revelation, in the moral laws, and on the responsibility for our life and in the life hereafter. I do invite the Muslim audience who are here to try sincerely to understand the standpoint of our Christian brethren. They are free, of course, to read the Quran and see what the Quran, the word of Allah, in their belief say about Jesus, but they must also try to understand Christianity from the standpoint and the way Christians understand it. But I'd like also to invite the Christian brothers and sisters sitting with us here to also have a sincere attempt to understand the teachings of Islam from its pristine sources. One scholar once commented that until relatively recently, 95% of the books written about Islam has been written by non-Muslims, mostly missionary or Orientalists. And he addressed, he's a good friend of mine, Reverend Harry Armond, when he quoted this, he addressed the Christian audience and said, what is your feeling as a Christian if 95% of the books written about Christianity are written by Muslims? As such, I hope that the least that can be done would be to refer to the Quran, which is the revelation the Muslim believe is to be the word of God. In fact, there is, can you get me a copy of the Quran? I was told that outside here in the souvenir shop, there are copies available of the translation of the meaning of the Quran by Yusuf Ali. It is, the brother will show it to you, and I understand it is available for us. Also, a notice that the tour of Mr. Deedat will continue until the end of July, so you may inquire about further functions if you wish. Also, there is an announcement I was requested to make on behalf of Dr. Clark, that those who wish to discuss with him, understand Muslims or non-Muslims, who wish to ask him questions or queries should contact him after the presentation. On Monday, July the 8th, there is another function on Christ in Islam at 7 or 1 p.m. At 7 p.m. in Southampton in the Civic Center. And there's also additional information for those who wish to obtain them.
Dr. Badawi, you don't mention where the venue of the Dr. Clark. You can meet Dr. Clark. No.
Oh, the venue for, for Dr. Clark, those who wish to meet with him, they can meet in the lower level in the West Arena room below entrance number 1. I wonder if there's any other announcement so that we can conclude.
There is tea and coffee.
There is tea and coffee so that you can cool down a little bit. And any other answer?
This video, it can be by direct.
There are also some videotapes of Mr. Deedat's presentations and dialogues which are available, so you can inquire from the organizers after the meeting. Again, I would like to apologize for the brothers whom I cut off, even though I didn't want to do it. I apologize to all of you. If there is any error, I seek forgiveness of Allah for that. And I thank you most earnestly, as well as our honored speakers, for your patience. Thank you very much. Address.